This is the Leo Climaco podcast.
The questions that I saw you give an answer to this. It's about forgiving God.
Okay.
But first, I want to ask you, why do you think the world exists? Why do you think we're here? Why do you think God created humanity in order for it to have this experience?
So, great question. We exist because there was a hesitation. Okay. When God, and once again, this is a perspective. Okay. To me, when God spoke anything to existence, it was an isness of God. And it was like, okay, it's like to imagine a circle. It's just a circle. Well, how do I experience that? Well, I have to then have a perspective of what that looks like. So then I separate myself. No different than like when, the sperm goes into the egg and then it splits into two, right? And so it split and it looked at itself and it goes, oh, what the fuck am I, right? So in the questioning of what it was, okay, that questioning of what it was like, if you imagine you have all the power in the universe and you question something, it'll just create infinite fractals. Like boom, like all of a sudden. And then it's like, well, how can I then conceive what this looks like? Well, I have to make a thing called space. Well, then there's 3 dimensions of space. So then I have to create what's perspective look like, north, south, east, west, up, down. I have to create these 3 dimensions.
Right.
Well, that's just sitting there. So now I have to put a time to this so that I can reflect this and understand what relativity looks like. Einstein, understands all that. So then I can look at it from this perspective and that perspective, right? And then at which point, once that happens, it's like, okay, well, now I have to infuse this with myself. That's the 5th dimension. That's why we're called 5th dimensional beings, because that's where spirit comes in. And I'm infusing all of this through all of the infinite perspectives, because all of creation has already happened and it's done. Okay. We're just at a point of time where we're witnessing it a little bit. Okay. And we then give feedback back to the all. And the more that we give feedback back to the all, okay, the more that our life becomes whole. Now we can give it shitty feedback or unharmonious feedback. We can give it harmonious feedback. Our purpose in life is to give it as much harmonious feedback as we possibly can, because then it knows itself, okay, all the possibilities that could ever be created, and the feedback that it's dropping back to us in that experience of linear time is now starting to do the work that it always intended. To be no different than, do you have kids?
I do.
Okay.
I have 2 boys.
Once you see your kids figuring it out, you're like, okay, this is great. I can let it go, right? But for a while, you're like, fuck.
Right.
I created this little guy, okay? And they are all over the place.
Yes.
I've got a 16-year-old. He still pisses on the toilet seat, okay? And sometimes I do. But he still pees on the toilet seat. And I'm like, one day he's going to figure this thing out.
Yep.
Right? And until it does, it's like, hey, stop, and you keep getting poked a little bit. And that is because because that's a reproduction of me. I'm a reproduction of God. I'm a reproduction of my father too, but, and my mother. But as I'm a reproduction of God, and the father and the mother are both looking at me and saying, hey, figure this out, and nurturing me along the way, the only way they can nurture me is through other versions of itself. Is through having me trip over myself, is through having me have self-doubt, the same self-doubt that it had when it created more versions of itself, right? And the more that I can resolve that, it gives it the feedback back that it created its path the way that it intended to. And then it becomes more whole again. And then that's our job, is to give it that feedback back, even though it doesn't need it, because it's already done, because there is no time to it. It already did all the experience. We're just in it, but we have the opportunity to, in that free will choice, to acknowledge what it was and then create this thing called heaven on earth. And once we do that, then the whole thing kind of snaps back together, and then we live a completely different life at that point.
Wow. So, because it's already all taken place, right? I was going to ask you, when we evolve, does it evolve? But I guess the question is kind of irrelevant, because it's already happened.
Yeah.
Right.
It's already evolved.
Right.
And it's already pulled us through. And there are some of us in life that it has recognized for it to like, hey, figure this out now, and then it gives you tools and resources to expand it out. Like, I mean, imagine if Jesus had social media, right? Or Moses had post that on Instagram. And see
Man.
things, right? Like, fish flying in a boat. That would have been pretty sick, right?
Yes, it
and
would
that
have.
Talk about a viral video.
Walking on water.
Exactly. Any of this stuff, any of these miracle workers at the time. And so now it's at the space to where I feel like it's going to be less of those type of miracles and more mini miracles through a bunch of collective individuals that have the ability to expand themselves using the technology that we've been giving. So the evolution is the evolution's already done. Like we had examples of that. You had your Moses and the Red Sea. If you want to take these, you have Buddha, right? You've got, you name
Krishna.
it. Krishna. Any of the stuff Billy Carson talks about. Name it. You've got all these individuals, Egyptians and whatnot.
Mesopotamia,
Aztec, Incans, all these miracle
Atlantis.
all of it, highly evolved, way past what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
We just now, the space we're in now is less of like one big badass entity coming in and being like, hey guys, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us at an equal playing field having similar resources, similar AI, similar technology to be able to spread the word and see each other at the same time. Because social media allows me to see each other at the same time.
Oh, instantly,
right?
Yeah.
AI allows me to communicate with each other, like it allows me to normalize the language, so we get away from like the Tower of Babel breakage into like a structure that it all sounds the same. We're all singing the same rhythm. We're all saying the same tune. And it's not a socialistic thing. It's us recognizing each other. And to the point we were saying before, it's the observation of this like collective ascension to where now all of a sudden we're seeing each other the same way, and then boom, it pops. That was the course correction that I sense that why we've evolved technologically,
right?
That all has given us as an opportunity to do that. Like, there's no way that I'm going to go out there and walk on water,
right?
But I'll be able to say some really cool stuff and visualize it in a meaningful way that'll pull people in and be like, oh, that's a thing, and then we all do it, and then boom, it just happens.
You just showed me how social media is required, in order for all of us in this, all 8 billion of us, to be able to get on the same frequency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's
incredible.
Cheap, it's inexpensive. Everybody has access to it. People call it the like devil's work or whatever.
Yes.
It's really not.
It's really not.
No.
Wow. Okay. Now on to forgiving God.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I've been struggling with that. What does that mean?
All right. So, and this is one I've been struggling to deliver well too, because people are like, why does God need forgiveness?
Yes.
Yeah. God doesn't need forgiveness. Okay. We forgive God, not for God, but for us.
Okay.
Okay. And if, let's say,
it's us forgiving ourselves,
it's us
basically,
forgiving
right?
Ourselves. But you go back and read, 20 days of news. You're going to see sex trafficking issues. You're going to see children getting killed. You're going to see all kind of crazy stuff happening in the news.
For sure.
Right? All of that was created by God. Now what happened is there's like this devil God and there's this good God and there's all this other stuff. So we put all the bad shit in this bucket right here.
Right.
But the source created everything. It created the bad shit. It created the good stuff. We only label it as that.
Right.
And so when we go through the process of saying, you know what, I'm actually going to forgive that which created all of that so that I can release my attachment to it. And I don't see it that way anymore.
Got it.
Then it releases all the trauma.
It's like forgiving God, forgiving a child cancer.
Yeah. But then you say, okay, God, it's okay.
Right.
Because you had to do that in order to do whatever process you're doing that I have no concept of what
right.
it could be.
Right.
Right. Because it's not a bad thing. And oftentimes a child gets cancer to teach somebody else something.
Right. The parent or whatever.
The parent, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And then the parent's like, oh, now my life was exponentially changed. And then they go out and they do more of the work. And it's always a course correcting mechanism that happens. But we don't forgive God for God. We forgive God for us so that we can release the trauma associated with those things, because we hold on to so much trauma in order to validate who we are. It'd be like if I said, oh, I was sexually abused. I went to prison. I tried to kill myself. I did all this other stuff. I'm black, so I got slave trauma. I've got all these other things.
Right.
And then I hold on to that in order
playing
to
that victim
myself.
card.
Yeah. Why would I do that? And then I could say, okay, well, now I've got past life trauma I got to deal with. So I'm going to go back to all my past lives. Fuck, I could play whack-a-mole with past life trauma for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you get to the source and forgive that thing, that created all the potential trauma that has ever been and could be, then it no longer impacts you.
What a cheat code.
That's what it is.
Yeah. It's like a shortcut.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah. It makes a huge difference.
Yes.
Yeah. So whenever I get something that pops up, I'm like, oh, I forgive God, but I also know I'm reproduction. So I'm forgiving myself. I'm forgiving all the experiences that could ever be. And every time it always surrenders itself. I feel the peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.